Alex Singer and Andrew Rose with Voldex.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Singer, the founder and CEO of Voldex, and I'm joined here by my colleague Andrew.
Hi there, I'm Andrew Rose, the Chief Product Officer at Voldex.
We are so excited to present at the ROBLOX conference that brings together the most talented creators from around the world. Today we're going to talk about the differences between Roblox and mobile free-to-play. Between Andrew and I, we have 9 years of experience making UGC games. I have 8.5 years of it, and Andrew has 6 months.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Alex. Thank you for calling that out. I may be a noob to the UGC space, but I bring the yin to your yang. Together, we have 9 years of experience building non-UGC games. In this case, I have 9 of it, and Alex has none.
Thanks, Andrew. This blend of Roblox game experience and mobile game experience comes through in the Voldex team itself, where we're 50 people working on our own Roblox games. Our business model is that we acquire and grow Roblox experiences. When we acquire a game, we give the creators very substantial payouts that compensate them for what they've built and allow them to move on to their next big thing. To grow our games, we do so in 3 main ways. The first is that we give our games more energy than they've ever had, with a dedicated team of product managers, programmers, data analysts, marketing experts, and much more. These teams take the games to new heights. The second way we grow our games is by continuing to be a learning organization. So when we learn something on one game, we apply our learnings to our other games where it makes sense. That way, all of our games benefit from each other. The third way we grow our games is by using some Voldex technology, such as what we use for A/B testing, so we can measure the impact of our updates before we release them to all of our players. We've grown our games over 45% so far from when we've acquired them, and we've only owned them for a short amount of time, and we're just getting started. We own several top games on the platform, like Driving Empire, Zo Samurai, Dungeon Quest, and Base Battles. And when adding up all of our games, we're a top 10 creator on the platform by revenue. Today we're going to be covering 2 large topics: what's easier on Roblox compared to mobile, and what's different on Roblox compared to mobile. Andrew will start us off on what's easier on Roblox.
I think we're having some technical difficulties with our images so far. You can see this one hasn't loaded, and unfortunately you can get to see all the amazing icons on the prior slides. Maybe those will resolve, hopefully over the next couple slides. But with respect to what's easier on Roblox, there are a number of areas we can cover. And again, I'm a UGC noob here, but it's been fascinating in the last 6 months to really see this and experience it. Today we're going to cover 4 areas: acquisition, activation, speed, and finally player engagement. So let's get started. Oh, this is still working this way. Moment of truth.
There we go.
We've got this working. Great. Look, user acquisition on Roblox is easier. There's a very high cost to scale on mobile. For every 100 installs on mobile, you're looking at having 75 paid installs supporting that. And each of those installs is costing about $2.20. So for a game like Driving Empire, which gets over 130,000 installs a day, here we are, you're looking at over $200,000 on user acquisition daily. Scaling on mobile requires a multi-million-dollar marketing budget, whereas on Roblox, you receive a high volume of free organic traffic if your game has really strong KPIs, good retention, good engagement, good monetization. What it really does is allows you as creators to focus on making a good game versus balancing a cost of acquisition versus a lifetime value equation. And really what ultimately it does is it allows small creators a chance to succeed. Once you have all those players, on Roblox, getting to the fun is also much faster. So on mobile, you're often faced with a series of permissions: push notifications, app activity tracking, terms of service, privacy policy, all before you're engaged in doing anything. On mobile, you're often faced with having to authenticate the player using a third-party service like Facebook, Google, or Apple, or building your own homegrown service. Whereas on Roblox, all that is handled in advance. On mobile, you have to build the player identity from the start. You have to put them through a series of prompts and flows to do so. But again, on Roblox, all of that is handled for you. If you want to build a new identity, you can, but you don't have to. And finally, and really importantly, on mobile, if you want to access the social graph, you're having to connect to a third-party service like Facebook, or you're starting from zero and having players build their in-network identity. Whereas again, on Roblox, as you all well know, your friends are there. You're already connected, and you're engaging together as a group. Ultimately, Roblox is really trying to build a platform that gets their friends and you together into games as fast as possible. Speaking of fast, I'll turn it over to Alex.
In addition to activation and onboarding being seamless on Roblox, development is also extremely fast as it compares to mobile. Developing features is faster on Roblox. Releasing telemetry, which are events we add in our code to better understand what our players are doing, is faster on Roblox. Making new content is faster on Roblox. Releasing an update is instant on Roblox. Getting player feedback is faster on Roblox. Yes, there's a pattern here. Everything is faster on Roblox, and we love it that way. We talk in development timelines of days and not months like in the mobile games world. This is primarily due to platform features such as one-click instant publishing on Roblox versus mobile. To publish an update to an app or game, it could take weeks just to get approvals, and the bureaucracy could really hinder the creativity. As we iterate, we begin to build these really engaged communities around our games. And one of the biggest privileges of having these engaged communities on our games is being able to co-develop our games with our players. We can include our games in the development process, get their feedback, and make our games as great as they could be. We're able to do this on Roblox for two main reasons. The first is that Roblox players are generally very passionate and willing to help. Even while they're not playing, they're thinking about our games, and they're present on Discord channels and more, giving us as creators so much feedback about our games that we can implement. The second reason is that the Roblox platform has tools like being able to easily create a development place and easily share that with our players to get their feedback early. So we can share our updates before they're ready to our most engaged players, get their feedback, and then implement it before we release the update to all of our users. We did exactly that on our game Driving Empire, where we wanted to improve the ways cars drive. Driving Empire is a driving game. So when we change anything related to how cars feel to drive, we think that's very risky, and we want to make sure that it's the best release it could be. So we created the update, and instead of releasing it to everyone, we released it to our most engaged players and asked them for their feedback. And we got thousands of notes of feedback. We read everything, implemented what we could, and then asked our most engaged players to test again and again and again until it was ready, at which point we released the update to all of our players, and it was a very successful release. Now we're going to talk about what's different on Roblox.
So what's different on Roblox? I'm sure many of you creators in the crowd can attest, but as you make updates and changes to your game, you learn, and over time those learnings accrue and grow. Now, it's much the same at Voldex here, where across our portfolio of games we make updates and we learn from those updates, and those learnings grow over time. Unfortunately, we only have, 26 minutes left together here, so we've had to make some hard choices. So we're going to cover three main areas: onboarding, social design, and then monetization design. Now, we here at Voldex try to A/B test everything. That means whenever we make a change or a feature update, a portion of our audience receives the change and a portion doesn't. We evaluate the metrics, we look at the player experience, we select the winner, and then roll it out to all players. So in the upcoming presentation, you're going to see a number of data points, and those data points come from A/B tests that we've run. So get ready for a bunch of data. There we go. We needed a delay anyway. So you're going to hear this more than once, but retention drives discovery. I think you've probably heard that in some of the talks already, but you're going to hear it more than once from us. Now, I spoke earlier about lower friction and a higher volume of organic traffic, and relative to mobile, what that means is that retention is lower. And so if you look at this graph on the right, for games that are in the same genre as Base Battles, Driving Empire, and Zo Samurai, Day 1 retention is about 16% for games in the 90th percentile. That means for all the players that installed yesterday, 16% are coming back today. And if you compare that to a number of mobile game genres where this is displaying the average, you can see that it is substantially lower. And so what we've come to learn is actually similar to mobile. Telling players where to go probably isn't quite enough to drive up retention. You need to equip them with the how to play, and really importantly, tell them why they want to come back and keep playing.
As Andrew shared, retention drives discovery. What this really means is that improving a game's retention not only makes the existing stream of new users retain better, but it also causes the Roblox algorithm to give our game a lot more impressions and a lot more visibility and a lot more new users. We saw this on our game Encounters, where initially the retention was low and so were the impressions from the platform. Then, our talented Encounters team, through a series of experiments, substantially increased the retention of Encounters. Then, the Roblox platform noticed that, wow, Encounters is a lot more retentive than it used to be, and began to send the game a lot more impressions. It's amazing that on Roblox, to grow our player base, all we need to do is make our game better. Compared to mobile, to grow the player base, we have to spend millions of dollars acquiring users through marketing.
So retention drives discovery. So how do we move up retention? Well, there's a hypothesis that we've had on Roblox that telling players where to go and kind of letting them figure it out is enough. But what we've come to learn through a series of experiments is that we believe telling players where to go isn't quite enough. On base battles and on Encounters, you can see that we added arrow guides. We pointed players where to go. On Zo Samurai, we took it one step further, and we literally just spawned the players straight into the action. No need to figure out where to go, because they were already there. And what we saw was an increase in core actions on the first day across the board, increase in battles, increase in fighting. But none of that translated to increases in day one retention. Telling players where to go wasn't giving them reasons to return. So what are those reasons?
We've learned that telling our players how to play is very important to growing our retention. We need to equip our players with the skills they need to play and have fun. On Encounters, we saw exactly this, and we wanted to really improve our game's retention. So we created a new champion called Noob, directed towards all our new users, that was a lot easier to play with. So we wanted our new users who were using Noob to know how to play because it was so easy to use it. As usual, we A/B tested the Noob champion release. Half of our new users had the Noob champion. The other half of our new users did not have the Noob champion, and they had access to all of the other champions in the game. That while they might be even more powerful, they were harder to use and more complex. When we analyzed the results of this A/B test, we saw that the players with the Noob champion retained a lot better because they knew how to play because the Noob was so easy to play with. We took this one step further on our game Zo Samurai. And truthfully, this is an experiment that I thought would not work, but our team, many of whom have a mobile games background, really wanted to try this because it's a common practice in the mobile games world. On Zo Samurai, we created an on-rails tutorial that taught players core actions, such as how to swing, how to block, and how to kick. As usual, we A/B tested this new tutorial. Half of our new users had the tutorial, half of our users did not. The new users with the tutorial learned how to play and retained and played a lot more than the new users who were just dropped into the game. So we've learned that really showing people how to play is very, very important to growing retention, which grows contrary to many platform beliefs.
So telling players where to go and then helping them understand how to play is really good, but ultimately you want to give them a reason why to return. You need to give them goals and feedback on those goals. And so on Zo Samurai, we added a very lightweight player level system. Kill players, earn XP, earn enough XP to level up. As you level up, you display on a leaderboard. What it does is tell players that making kills equals progress, progress equals achievement, and it gives them something to come back and attain. And in doing so, we saw a 7% lift in day 3 retention. Similar story played out on base battles. We released an event to everyone here. In this event, a player had to complete a set of goals in a limited time. They complete those goals, and they unlock a tank. During this event, we noticed that new player retention was higher. And so we went back and we redid this event. We set the goals and customized them for new players. We found an interesting weapon that would be special for new players and released it again as an A/B test. In doing so, what we saw was a 10% lift in day 7 retention. And what this is saying to a player is, there's the goal set out for you. Here's a set of things to do, feedback on those things, and it gives clarity about why they want to come back. So equipping them with the where and then the how and ultimately the why was the recipe for the highest retention. So having covered retention, we'd like to turn to social. Roblox is incredibly social. You heard yesterday that there's over 17 million friendships being made every day. It's quite incredible. And even if you're playing alone, when you drop into an experience, it is vibrant and alive. There are players all around you. And that's the thing that we as creators relative to mobile really have an advantage. We get to take advantage of that because existing players provide this amazing social proof, and they can sometimes help new players onboard. The piece here, though, and this is the one that we think is often overlooked, is those existing players can sometimes be detrimental. That power imbalance can be too much. And so we have to be conscious of it as we think about design and strike the right balance. Now, this is the one where, look, social is tricky and every game is different. So we're not going to provide best practices here. We are going to call out the differences and ask all of you to think about them as you look at your own games.
Let's start by talking about some of the positive impacts that we've seen existing players can have on our new players. We saw these positive impacts on our game Base Battles, where we created these new player servers. So we A/B tested new player servers. Half of our new users were put into these new player servers where they were totally shielded from the existing players. The other half of our new users were put into regular servers where they were facing existing players. The revenue per user of the new users who were in servers with existing players was a whole 92% higher than the new users who were put into only new player servers. This is because the existing players drove the new users to spend due to a power imbalance and from showing off all the amazing things there were to purchase for Robux. That being said, the impact of existing players is not all positive on our new users. We saw this on our game Encounters, where we wanted to increase the game's retention. So we created a bot that our new users could face as their first match, so they could likely win in their first match in the game. The retention of the new users who faced an existing player instead of the bot was 5% lower, because just as the new user was trying to learn how to play, the existing player would completely destroy them because they had the best champion and already knew all the best moves. On Base Battles, in that same experiment I shared on the previous slide about the new player servers, even though the new players who played with existing players monetized better, they retained significantly worse, because same as Encounters, as the new players were just trying to learn how to play, they were getting completely destroyed by the existing players and just had less fun. So they retained 15% worse in their first day, which is massive. On Roblox, we need to be very conscious of the impacts of our existing players on the new users, because they can be very strong in both directions.
So let's close out the last area of learning relative to mobile. There's a common misconception on mobile, and that misconception extends to Roblox as well, that players are irrational when it comes to spending. They're just spending their parents' money, or that's a flashy object, I'll convince them to buy it now. No, players are very rational. They calculate value and they plan ahead. And so gimmicks and flash are not going to be the recipe for long-term sustainable revenue. Similar to mobile, what we've come to find is that the majority of our revenue is coming from our long-term engaged veteran players. But unlike mobile, that revenue is dispersed across a broader spender audience, and we believe that's the case because they're likely working within a budget. And so as we think about monetization design, we have to be doing so with those constraints in mind.
Roblox players are typically younger than mobile game players. While they're younger, they are extremely smart spenders. We saw this on our game Driving Empire, where we created a new store for buying in-game cash. When we gave players more cash per Robux spent for buying larger cash packages at once, we saw an 8% sustained increase in the revenue per user, which is massive. This is because our player base noticed the better value and spent more as a result. On our game Base Battles, we created a starter pack, and we experimented a lot with the pricing of the starter pack. For users that we showed a very high price for the starter pack that did not make sense compared to what was in the starter pack, they first did not buy the starter pack at all. And second, because they saw an offer that was poor value, they spent less on Base Battles as a whole. So our learning here is to only show offers and only offer dev products, game passes to our players when they're good value, or we risk them not only not buying that dev product or game pass, but spending less on the whole experience. Another thing we learned after analyzing so many top games on Roblox is that the majority of revenue comes from veteran players, which we at Voldex define as people who started playing the game at least 90 days ago. This taught us two things. The first, to really move our revenue numbers, we need to focus on engaging and monetizing our veteran players. We need to constantly release new things for those veteran players to purchase. The second thing it taught us is that we don't need to focus so much about how much our new users are spending on our experience, because they really don't account for much of our revenue at all. For our new users at Voldex, we're really focused on their retention and engagement so that one day we hope they could become a veteran player, at which point we can make some money from them.
Lifetime value is the total amount of money a player has spent in your game from the moment they started playing to the present moment. We've created a number of lifetime value buckets, LTV buckets, and then looked at the spenders within them and the amount of revenue that sits within them. Much like mobile, you can see that the majority of spenders sit in the smaller LTV buckets. In this case, 61% are having spent somewhere between 1 and 800 Robux. Unlike mobile, though, you can see that the revenue continues to predominantly sit in those smaller LTV buckets. There are just not enough spenders spending 7 figures to push the revenue downwards. So as we think about monetization design on Roblox versus mobile, you're designing for players that are spending tens of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we believe that's the case because we think players are more likely working within a budget. And this does connect with some of the external research that we've seen. For parents that are allowing their children to make in-app purchases, roughly 40% of them are setting a monthly budget of about $10. And we saw some data come through on pricing tests that we've run that seem to reinforce and validate this. On Encounters, the fighting game, we released a new developer product. We released it at a price point of 650 Robux, and we ran a test that compared it to 400, 300, and 250. Unsurprisingly, as you lowered the price, conversion rate dramatically increased. Interestingly, across the board, though, you can see at 400, 300, and 250, that the overall revenue per user increased. We were just not able to generate enough conversions at that much higher price point to offset the decrease or the increase in revenue. So what this is telling us is that there's a sweet point to hit and that we need to be conscious of how much a player has to spend at that point in time, and then again couple it with delivering really high value. So that really begins to wrap it up for us here. With respect to learnings about differences and similarities relative to mobile on Roblox, we've covered 3 large areas. We started with onboarding, and we said, look, actually similar to mobile, telling players might not be enough. We really need to help them understand how to play, and then most importantly, give them reasons why to return, why to keep coming back. We then went through social design, where unsurprisingly, Roblox blows mobile out of the water when it comes to social. But in this case, we actually need to be really thinking about how do we maximize that upside and make sure that we're mitigating the potential downside. And then last but not least, with monetization design. Again, much like mobile, players are rational. They calculate value. And much like mobile, your veteran audience is accounting for the majority of your revenue. But unlike mobile, it is dispersed across a greater set of spenders, and that they are more likely working within a budget. So we need to be designing with those constraints in mind.
Before we conclude, I want to remind everyone that we're always looking to acquire the best Roblox experiences. If this is at all interesting to you, we'd love to have a strategic conversation. You can find me at the conference or visit our website. Finally, we're always looking for great talent. Here we are at our recent team meetup in Orlando at an alligator tour. We'd love to see you at the next one. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our recruiter, Brian, who you can see in the back of the image here, or find a role that interests you on our website. And with that, thank you so much for the time today. We're grateful for the chance to present and to work on Roblox. Now, let's jump into some Q&A.
So we do have 10 minutes together, so if anybody's interested in any questions, you can see 2 microphones here, very similar to yesterday. If you have questions, please come forward and we'll take them from there. I see one coming up right now.
Hey, thanks guys. So really cool to see the A/B testing that you were doing to sort of prove out your hypotheses. I'm wondering how you think about sort of the work that goes into that, and whether it's worth sort of the potential edge cases that arise with users coming to the game and experiencing different experiences across an individual test, and how you make the decision of whether it's worth the insights versus just sort of delivering a new feature to all players.
I'm happy to roll. That's why I emphasize the word try to A/B test everything. I want to put that emphasis in there. And I will say that's maybe one of the big differences relative to mobile is, particularly on the side where you're teleporting in with friends, that it is a lot harder to test everything. So I'll note that we always want to make sure that the experience is consistent for players, particularly if they're playing socially, and we're still wrapping through some of those edge cases that you speak of. I'd say it's a balance. For big changes that we believe are higher risk or have the potential to go one way or the other, those are the ones that we want to roll out. And then the other comment that Alex noted is we will often put that into players' hands through prototypes and Discord channels much earlier so that we're getting at least an early signal that this won't be massively detrimental. So how do we balance it? There's no like one-size-fits-all solution here. It's kind of a gut check that says, is this going to be bad, if you will? Because that's the really thing that we want to mitigate.
Another thing is to be transparent with our players when we're testing something, so they don't freak out that they have different experience from another player, and that we're all doing it to make the game better for everyone.
Happy to talk more though after. This is an interesting topic that I'd love to go into more detail on.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll go to you in the front.
Yeah,
Before it.
hi there. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
So coming from mobile into Roblox, if you went back into mobile, I don't know if you guys still are focused on that. What learnings have you had from Roblox that you would take back to mobile, or is it too difficult a business to sustain these days?
That's a wild one. I'm gonna I'll cut at this one on two angles if I think about it. One is maybe on the content creation and sort of dynamic with engaging with player bases. I think mobile still hasn't figured that out. There's a lot of just I'm gonna buy an influencer, I'm gonna send some money and throw money at the wall sort of thing. I think that one still hasn't been figured out about building relationships and realizing that it's like a coexistence, they support each other. I think traditional mobile games haven't yet cracked that code at scale or really thought through it meaningfully. I think that would be one. And the other is frankly just engaging the player base a lot more as well. So I think there's a lot of, we're gonna build this and then we might run some play tests, or we'll go to user insights and run some surveys, or maybe talk to a few players. But I feel like there's a lot more co-creation that happens on Roblox, and that seems like an opportunity that could exist on the mobile side. Might be what I would think about. Go for it in the back.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Sean Keith from NBC Universal. My question is, as mobile matured, you had large and well-funded companies that came to dominate the landscape, right? Their pocketbooks and their experience were hard to compete with. Do you think the same thing could happen on Roblox, especially as the platform grows and becomes much focused on by other game companies that are being squeezed in the mobile landscape?
Do you want to take it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can answer this one. Like on Roblox, we see that the top games are mostly owned by individual creators that created them, and there's a lot of companies and big teams that try to compete and make new games, and that's very, very difficult. And we still see the top experiences are made by individual native Roblox creators, and we don't try to make new games either. Right now, it's very difficult to compete with millions of experiences being created as a large team.
I just maybe add on to that as well. Like if you saw yesterday, I think it was what, like 33% of the top 100 or top 200 experiences were new year over year. And so I think Roblox is clearly focusing on this community and making sure that smaller, mid-sized creators can continue to build interesting experiences. I mean, that's the innovation on this platform. That's what makes it so interesting, really. And I think if you start seeing that consolidation and maybe that ruthlessness, that you're kind of taking away the spirit of what is good. And I almost feel like that would be like a death knell. So that would be a sign of bad. But that's maybe my hot take on it.
Thanks.
Hello. Okay, so I have a question with regards to the A/B testing. So I think my understanding of the analytics right now is that it's generally, for the whole experience, right? How do you design your tools in a way that allows you to analyze, the player experiences based on different A/B tests, I imagine that you have to have your own suite of tools that enable you to do that. So I'm quite curious, like how you've been able to execute that.
Yeah, I can start. So yeah, we have we invested in building our own tools to do A/B tests, and hopefully it comes to all creators on Roblox one day. But yeah, it was a lot of work to build those.
Oh, okay.
To build
Yeah,
those
I thought there
tools.
was like some open source tools that you all used.
No, it's an in-house set of tools that we use that make sure that one set of players will receive one experience and another set will receive a different one, and then we can evaluate the metrics accordingly.
Ah, okay.
So all the tracking and data sits on our side. It's not being funneled through Roblox right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That was actually the exact same question I was going to ask, but I guess another question would be, when you guys are looking at your funnels and your cohort analysis, like, has there been any like really unique things to Roblox that's been maybe something that like creates churn that you didn't really notice with mobile games, but something maybe different?
I mean, I can jump on with that. I think we keyed in on it particularly with that base battles new user server test. That's the one that continues to blow my mind, because you wouldn't necessarily face that on mobile to the same degree, because you're not jumping into experiences where there's like 24 other people there with you. So the impact of the other players around you, I think, is the one that continues to be an interesting dynamic. So I'd say relative to mobile, that's the one that stands out, at least for me, because it's just frankly a less controlled experience. You're kind of leaving it to the whims of the players and hoping that they behave.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for an amazing presentation. The information is really important, and it's great that you managed to capture it and also explain it very well about all the analytics. My question, there was a part where you were talking about how day 7 retention is affecting discovery. Have you meant, like, in that field of like checking retention, have you also compared this against number of sessions of users or the length of sessions of users as well, and if that affects discovery as well?
You want to take it?
Yeah. So discovery, from our understanding, is driven by a few things. The first is day 1 to day 7 retention. The second is how much time our players are spending on our experience. Third, like how well our experience monetizes. And fourth, how much people click on our icons relative to all the other icons on Roblox. And we have to optimize towards all 4 pillars to really influence the discovery.
I'll say you've got the booth over there with search and discovery. I highly recommend you go relentlessly grill them. Having done that myself, would be part A. Part B, I think you saw in Manuel's presentation yesterday, he showed, I think, 7 different buckets of inputs. So there's clearly a lot going on in the discovery algorithm. So I think they're working on transparency. That was one of the big things. So as Alex noted, we believe there's like a big 4, but the other things you noted all play into it, and like clearly. To what degree, to be determined. Roblox will be sharing that with us in the next 3 to 5 years, I think was the timeline given. So go pester them relentlessly on my behalf.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, look, we've got 2 minutes left. If there's no more questions, really appreciate the time. Alex and I are going to be around. Please come find us. If you want to come join us, hit up Brian. Other than that, thank you very much for the time today. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of RDC.
Thank you.
Please welcome Clarence Macmilliam and Sid Nadkarni with Maximilium Studios.
Hi, guys. Wow. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning, guys. Wow, it's great to be here to see all of you guys. And, we've got a lot that we want to talk to you guys about. But of course, for those of you guys staying till the end, there's also something very special that we'd love to show you. So stay tuned, let's get started. So my name's Clarence. I do a lot of the creative direction for all our games, and I also handle the studio's foresight in terms of where we're gonna go. And we gather in all the amazing talent from across the world together so we can help make the vision come to life too. And today, I'll be accompanied by...
So hi, I'm Sid, and I'm the audio and music director at Maximilian. I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
So if you guys need cool beats for your games, you guys know where to go to. So for those of you guys who don't know who we are, we're Maximilian Studios. We started around 7 years ago as a small group of 3 people, including myself, Sid, and a guy named York, who actually became a great engineer here at Roblox. And like many of you guys, we've been on the platform for a really long time. And so we love the lightheartedness and the quirkiness of Roblox games. But as we got older, we realized that we really wanted to blend the quirkiness with something a bit more complex, something more immersive that had like a cinematic tone to it and proper world building that you often see in the movies. And of course, growing up on Roblox, we felt the need to make one. And looking at the vast landscape of Roblox at the time, you know, there wasn't really a title that we could find that matched that description. And you know, being taught at a young age by playing Roblox, you know, we felt like we had to make one ourselves. And so over the next 6 months, we spent every waking hour making what some of you guys may know of as Operation Scorpion. We used every success, every failure, every skill, and every experience from building a title into building what many of you guys know as Frontlines. And of course, thanks to Roblox, its amazing suite of tools, its engine, and its no cost of entry, we're able to start our studio with little to no cost. And thanks to many of you guys, the Accelerator program, the Game Fund, and the amazing people here at Roblox, we're able to grow our team from a small group of 3 people into a studio of over 30 people, creating titles like Frontlines that has amassed over 52.5 million plays over just the previous 6 months. And thank you. And not only that, Frontlines has been played worldwide by thousands of people in different countries of different backgrounds every single second. And so I'd like to just take a moment and thank all of you guys for the success. And of course, I also have to shout out our Korean players for keeping our game so lively by dominating the top charts every single night. So props to them about that. But you know, what I find most profound, and I think many of you guys will find too, is that out of our 52.5 million plays, almost all our players are over 18. And within that demographic alone, almost all of them came from off-platform to check out Frontlines for the first time ever on the Roblox platform. And so what that signaled to us was that a high-fidelity game wasn't only possible on a technical level, but there's also a huge market for it. And so today, I just love to talk to you guys about how to create new experiences to reach new audiences, and also how we're able to achieve what so many people thought wasn't viable, even impossible for the Roblox platform. So let's just dial back a bit and talk about Operation Scorpion. So when we first started Operation Scorpion, we adopted a new kind of workflow that was quite unique to the Roblox platform at the time, which was to use off-platform tools like Adobe Suite, Blender, Substance Painter, and did whatever we did there and ported it over to Roblox. As the tools evolved and we started working on Frontlines, we adopted the same workflow but in greater depth, utilizing many of Roblox's greatest technologies like PBR and Future is Bright to mimic the high-fidelity look that you often get in AAA experiences with its realistic textures and atmospheric lighting. But of course, like many of us here, we understand that every engine comes with its own limitations, and that every imperfections that we have in our creations are often highlighted when we don't do things the right way. So how do we solve for that? What did we do? Well, what we did was we went back to the basics. We spent a great deal of time honing in on proper technique, like having a clean topology so we can control how the reflections look in each of our models. We found consistency across the board with our color palettes, typography, and styling guide. We even understood every single segment of our code base so we can optimize every single part as much as possible. And the reason why we did these things isn't only just to make a game that looks great, but we also wanted to make something that was accessible for everyone. It is just as important to us to make a game that is not only enjoyed by different ages, but also by many people of different backgrounds utilizing different devices. So performance has always been the top of our priority. And of course, we also wanted to optimize our game for the older audiences who tend to care more about higher frame rates. Actually, just the other night, I was playtesting with a guy on Frontlines, and he was complaining that he was only getting 200 FPS on his computer, which, personally, I thought that was pretty good. So because of that, we decided that we wanted to optimize the game for everyone, including our hardcore players. And after observing our older audiences a bit and how they play, and spending time myself playing titles like Call of Duty and Battlefield, we were able to summarize how to create a high-fidelity experience into really 4 key points. One is to create a world that you feel immersed in, as if everything around you starts to disappear. 2 is to create a character system that feels like an extension of yourself, as if it's you, yourself, moving around and doing all the actions without any limitations and having it not feel robotic. 3 is to create the details as if the things around you are also moving in the real world, and that the feelings that you get in the game are starting to come off the screen. And lastly, 4 is to create the illusionary sensation that there's always something new to look forward to, and there's always more to learn. And now I'll be sending it over to Sid for him to explain to you the finer details.
Thank you, Clarence. So, when we released Frontlines, we saw that a lot of mainstream YouTubers were making content about our game. They highlighted realistic graphics, animation, and just generally stuff that they noticed was high fidelity. So I'd like to highlight one of these clips right now.
I'm not lying to you. This game that I'm playing right now is Roblox. I'm actually lost for words.
So this video was made by Jack Frags, who's a YouTuber that makes content for FPS games. And essentially, this was super important to us because it taught us that high fidelity grabs people's attention. That's super key to basically getting the attention of new audiences, right? And it also taught us that high fidelity experiences are very immersive. It makes you feel like you're actually that action character running through the battlefield. So with that being said, which game would you prefer to play? The one on the left or the one on the right? Left. Left? Right? Okay, I have no idea. I heard left, I heard right. But I mean, okay, I gotta say classic Roblox is goated, okay? But we noticed that a lot of older audiences preferred the one on the right. So it wasn't just because of realistic graphics or animation or any of that, but it was also because of the realistic characters. So audiences outside of Roblox know Roblox to be, R15 rigs and this kind of lower poly style, but seeing the realistic characters really helped introduce that to Roblox's image. So essentially, we realized at the development team that all facets of our development need to be high fidelity. So I'd like to kind of highlight how we achieved that in Frontlines. So with our animations, we worked day and night to make sure that we prevented it from being too linear or too robotic. And for example, if an animator was trying to rotate a weapon, we'd make sure that it didn't rotate too fast or try to make it look as natural as possible. Another thing we did was focus on realistic movement and making sure that our third-person animations had a consistent style. So we made sure that for example, the sprinting was aggressive enough and it looked like an action character running through the battlefield. We also made sure to add as many interesting animation details as possible. So for example, our animator for the inspect animation made sure that when you pull out the magazine, it actually checks the spring. And that way, it can make sure that there's no jamming or anything. So that actually is really important to new audiences because when they see those little details, they feel very immersed in that world. So the next thing I'd like to highlight is the environment. So this is really important, especially with lighting, because it's one of the first things that new audiences notice. So we wanted to make sure that it felt like you were in a movie or some sort of cinematic experience. We spent days just fine-tuning each and every map. We also worked on creating a detailed environment with several props and adding detailed textures to create that wear and tear sensation. And that way it looked like you were in the real world. As well as that, we also utilized PBR. Thank you so much for giving us PBR, Roblox, because when you walk by a vehicle, you can see the sunlight glinting right off, and it looks just really beautiful. So along with that, sound design, which is my job, I try to make the audio as immersive as possible. So we created systems such as if your enemy is firing in front of you, it'll sound normal. But if they walk behind a wall or a building, it'll actually sound dampened, and that'll emulate kind of the real world. But along with that, we also add a lot of detailed audio. So if you're walking around the map, perhaps, and you walk past a bush, or if you walk past a light bulb or even an air vent, you'll hear sounds from everything. And that way you kind of create a 3D soundscape, and it feels like you really are there and you're hearing that through your ears. So the last thing we utilize is also sound groups. Sound groups are super important to us because it helps us create automated mixing systems, such as if you lose health or have lower health, it'll actually dampen all the gameplay audio, showing you that you need to get to safety. So last but not least, UI and VFX is something that we don't talk about enough, but we spent so much time fine-tuning it. So for example, with the hit markers, we worked really hard to just fine-tune the jiggle so that when you actually hit an enemy, it looks really satisfying. So on top of that, we worked on reactive environmental VFX. So if you fire your weapon at something metallic, for example, you'll actually see sparks fly off, and we worked really hard to even fine-tune those sparks as well. So on top of that, we also worked on creating really feel-good, just reactive UI animation for things like the ammo counter going down, the text jiggles and turns red, notifying you that you need to reload. So say you have all of these things combined, animations, sounds, or everything relating to development, packaged into one product. The question becomes, how do you market that to your new audiences? So this is a really hard question, and obviously we can't guarantee an answer to this, but we'd like to highlight what worked for us. So we utilized Twitter. We created a brand account, and rather than posting the content about Frontlines on there, we decided to actually repost our individual developers' posts about Frontlines, and that way our audience could not only check out our brand, but they could also look at our individual developers' accounts and check out their talent. So along with that, we also utilized TikTok. TikTok's a great way to garner a lot of attention in a really short amount of time. And one of the cool things about it is you don't even need to be a content creator to get a lot of views. We noticed that a lot of people posted content about Frontlines, and maybe they had 300 views per video, but they actually ended up getting millions of views on the Frontlines videos, which is amazing. So one last thing I'd like to highlight is the Discord community. It's a very powerful tool for getting all of your audience together into one spot. So in our Discord server, we have about 26,000 members, but it's really, really useful because it's a great place to relay announcements, updates, and maybe you can even ask your community how you can make your game better. So it's a great way for your community to find other people with similar interests, and maybe even if you have a bot in there where you can check game stats, you can flex on your friends with your KDR a bit. So with all of that in mind, with development and marketing put together, at Frontlines, we had to really think about what did we learn from this whole experience. So with that, I'll pass it right back to Clarence.
Thanks, Sid. So now that you guys know the special sauce in terms of how we build our games and market it, let's just chat a bit in terms of what we learned over the years. And if we were to really put all our learnings into one phrase, is to really just show that you care. And you can do that by showing your players that you're still interested in improving the game that they spent countless hours playing every single day. You can even talk to them directly and figure out what they like and what they don't like, not just about the game, but also maybe the community and the studio as a whole. And if you guys are feeling bold, you can even take their crazy ideas into consideration. But showing that you care doesn't just have to stop there. You can show that you care by having a great attention of detail in all your games, or adding Easter eggs, or even having a level of polish that's unseen of in every aspect of your experience. So to put it simply, you just have to make a game that just works. And I know it's easy for me to say here, but in today's day and age, it almost feels like a novelty. So let's just summarize and really think about how we could do that. And going off our first suggestion is to really start by making a game where you feel like you're inside your own creation. And to do that, you have to utilize a great attention to detail into every facet of your development, whether it's textures, sound effects, animations, graphics design, lighting work, or even thinking about the corners of how the buttons look and what happens when the mouse hovers over it, the UI animations overall, and of course the programming, and having an overall package that feels insanely great. And once you guys achieve that, just take a step back and take pride in what you've achieved. You've worked so hard by just crossing over the finish line, so pat yourself in the back and have the confidence to share it to the world through multiple social channels and of course your family and friends. So now just sit back, relax, hopefully for not too long, and just see the fireworks fly. Thank you all for coming to our talk, and thanks for listening. Yeah. But hold up, guys. I know I promised you guys something in the beginning, and there's actually one more thing. And we've really waited a long time to finally be able to show you guys this. And it's the next experience by Maximilian Studios that is at a much higher caliber than anything we've ever done before. So we're super passionate about this one. And we really hope that you guys are just as energized as we are about this. So let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Simona. Get ready for the ride of your life.
Thank you, guys. What do you think?
Awesome.
So, we got a bit of time here, so let's just hang out and ask some questions. So if you guys have anything you want to ask us, do come up to the mic and we'll answer them. Anyone curious?
Hello, I'm Cody, or Chaotic Cody.
How's it going?
So my question here is for Sid. So audio design, I've noticed the audio in Frontlines is fantastic, and you kind of showed us a bit of how you made it, so immersive. What is your workflow like, and what tools do you use outside of Roblox, and could you show what your process is?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question, by the way. So yeah, I do use third-party software. I use Pro Tools and Ableton, which are great ways to kind of get started in that if you want to get started in sound design. But I essentially, so if it's a system, I'll kind of design my own prototype and then test that concept. And for example, the weapon sounds, right? That's a very complex system that we designed. So I started first by creating a concept myself and programming it out. And once we proved that the concept actually worked, we ended up prototyping it in Frontlines. And then after that, I ended up kind of figuring out how to mix those things together. So with Roblox, there are a lot of limitations. And so with my process, I had to figure out how to kind of bypass them. So for example, one of the limitations is sometimes when you trigger sound events, it doesn't actually play like perfectly on time. There's a delay. So, our systems have to compensate for that. So I'll usually come up with a system, and once all that's down, I'll start sound designing the thing itself. So weapon sounds actually took a really long time. I had to study kind of every little detail and figure out how we can make it as immersive as possible. So with each weapon sound, or each weapon, there's actually a set of 50 different sounds just for the firing noise, depending on. So it actually incorporates whether you're indoors or outdoors in a hallway. Maybe it looks at the location where you are. So I basically just work on sound designing those things, so taking actual recordings and processing them, and then putting them in the game. And that's usually how sound design goes for us.
Awesome. And one more thing. Do you ever go and get like live references, for example, for the guns? You ever go to a shooting range and
So I didn't go. So funny story. I'm not really that big into weapons, but I had to study a lot. So there were people in our community who helped out a lot with this, actually. So some of them owned weapons, and they sent me actual recordings of them. So I would actually study them for a long time and kind of figure out how I can replicate that experience. So I really looked at that and those references and kind of studied it and made sure I could replicate that in our game. So
awesome. That's another great way to leverage your community too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, our community is just amazing. And I know some of you guys are here. I've seen you here, so thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Hello. My voice is kind of gone, but my name's Luis, and my only question is, what were the challenges y'all came across when you were building your community? Because I'm sure, making the Discord, making the socials, doing that community management, and especially as it scales up, as the game gets more popular, what were the challenges y'all came across?
That's a really great question, actually. So when we started Operation Scorpion, our first project, there was about 500 members or so around that time. And as Frontlines came in, we saw the numbers grow exponentially. So for us, we had to figure out how to kind of control that. So we basically set out a bunch of guidelines for moderators and things like that. We also separated game moderators along with Discord moderators. And with our Discord moderators, we gave them systems where they could easily, ban players or users who weren't behaving very well. And also, we set out guidelines and exact processes for them to follow. Also, we have, so if someone's temporarily banned for, say, a week, we have it set where they can, there's essentially rules as to how long someone's banned, or we have set out situations for which they can be banned. So it's just a lot of detail work, just writing out guidelines, working with your moderators, and seeing how you can kind of organize all that chaos of thousands and thousands of members into fitting into that sort of system. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, it's really it's kind of like the idea of gamification too, right? When we first started the community, it was really hard for us to get players engaged or people engaged within the Discord server because all we had was just a general chat. And that's all they could talk in. And as time grew on, we realized that adding things like music sessions and play sessions really helped a lot. People were more engaged and they felt like they were part of our Discord community a lot more. So I'd say adding in little channels where they can show off themselves, maybe having a dog showing channel where they can post their dogs and so on really helps a lot.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Drake Rose. I go by Drake Rose on Roblox platform. So my question is, Frontlines is a really high fidelity game, and mobile is a large market share on Roblox. With this kind of fidelity, how are you making sure that you're optimizing your experience for mobile?
That's a really good question. And I think the biggest thing is going back to kind of what I said, is that if you have the proper techniques, and it's like developing a game in the 90s, right? When the hardware wasn't really up to date just yet. You really have to have the proper techniques and get the cleanest topology and understanding every segment of your game, whether it's how many triangles we have in each model to how the code segments run and how they perform. And really understanding that and optimizing every single part really helps with the mobile aspect. But of course, with the racing game, it's not just going to be in a small map anymore. We're going to have a large open world with multiple skyscrapers and buildings. And our team is building a custom LOD system to support that. And we're going to have a mobile-friendly version.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, my username is JustDev on the Roblox platform. I actually have a question about your racing game. My question, I don't know if you can answer it, but how do you get clean engine audio? Like, do you get dyno samples? Or, like, I know that's a really challenging for games like Forza, and it's extremely difficult, so I'm kind of curious what the secret sauce is going to be.
So there's two things. Obviously, so we haven't actually started fully, right? But we want to do two things. We do want to record some of our own cars, especially the special ones, live. So we're going to rig up the cars, mic them up, get every single angle we can possibly get, and record those and implement them using our car audio system. But along with that, for the cars we can't get, you're right, dynos, right? So there's a whole car community out there who records these for fun. And there's a lot of helpful assets out there. If we're looking for those underground street cars, there's a lot of recordings using those specific engines and things. So using tools like Isotope's RX10 and things, we can kind of separate those out and help create detailed audio for that. So honestly, it might not be perfect, but that's like how we can get as close as possible to creating that really immersive audio experience with driving a car.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Hey guys, so this is kind of a question for each of you. Just was one interesting, why do you develop? So like some people do it because they want to make something cool. Some people want to do it because they find the game they're making fun. So yeah, just wondering.
You want to go first?
You go first.
Cool. That's a good question. And I think it's really just going back and thinking about all the things that I'm inspired by. I consume a lot of art, whether it's reading a book, watching a movie, going to a stadium show, and I watch all these artists kind of like almost like put their life's work and passion into what they do. And sometimes I'm like in a concert, I'm just sitting there and they're doing such a crazy job creating an experience that I'm just like, they're like, I want to do exactly that, but in video games. And so hopefully that answers your question. It's really, I want to create an experience for people.
For me, so yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar in the way, like, I just love creating really new, innovative things, like the weapon system for Frontlines. I spent, I think, a year on just refining it over time. And for me, developing is just something where I can kind of creatively express what I'm thinking. So even with sounds, and I also do music, which I didn't really highlight in this presentation, it's a great way where I can, it's unrestricted creativity for me. And thanks to Clarence, of course, I can do that. But, it's a great way to just kind of, when you watch movies and things, like I recently just watched Oppenheimer, right? And just seeing the art and like the music and stuff, I kind of want to recreate that feeling in our games and make other people really enjoy it. And I do also for the community. I mean, seeing people comment on my music and my sounds and all that stuff really, really means a lot to me every time I see those things. So I just appreciate making really cool stuff for people.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Sandre, and I have a question. So when you go high fidelity, there is of course the CPU usage and rendering, but what kind of steps do you do for the networking? Because that is a very big part of Roblox, since everything is downloaded, and when you go high fidelity, also the size of the game goes exponentially up. What are some steps that you guys are taking to deal with? Like how to deal with networks and poor Wi-Fi connections, etc.
Yeah, of course. So, none of us are the engineers of the team, so we can't really give you the most detailed answer that you'd probably like. But just from our talks and having our weekly meetings with the racing team, we have a really talented racing engineer, actually. His name's Myro. And when he's not working on car games, he's actually working on his car, changing out the tires and stuff. And I had countless talks with him in terms of like the networking, because especially in a racing game, you want it to be as smooth as possible, right? Especially when like two cars are going side by side, they're trying to go into the finish line. We want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And so we're actually creating our whole custom networking model. They're going to do a server authoritative model where we have complete control over the physics and where the positions of each car is. And on top of that, in terms of scale, it's really just like the LOD and just making sure everything's smooth, far away and also within it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, I'm Hertz, 144 Hertz.
Hey,
It's good to see you guys.
This guy actually worked for us on Operation Scorpion, so thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so for you guys' new racing game, I gotta say the trailer looks so impressive. It is a beautiful looking game. How do you guys plan to accomplish such amazing fidelity on such a large open world map? I imagine something like streaming. Do you have custom LED? What's your secret sauce there?
It's really having a really amazing team. It's the people and the talent that's with us. For our environments, we're going to have over 15 people just working on the city. And the way that we structure our team is we have a very specialized group of people. So there is just one person that's just creating skyscrapers. There's another person that's just creating small houses. And so having them work together and really discuss and having a great set of talent is really going to help with that. And of course, on the technology side, it's really just the custom streaming and so on. And really, I just like to thank, Jad and Ed and Matt over there with the Game Fund, of course. Without them, we wouldn't have the resources to build this amazing team that we have for you guys to have the craziest experience with our racing game. So
We do love Game Fund. All right, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, if there isn't anyone else that wants to ask a question, thank you all for coming. And if anything, we'll hang out with you guys outside.
Of course.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Please